All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. If I haven't met you, my name's Andrea Dudhoff. I'm a psychologist and helping out with OCAMPR this year. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce Erik Hadden. He's a licensed clinical professional counselor in the state of Maryland and has been practicing for 22 years. He received his master's degree from Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary in 2003 and is currently in his last year of his master's in theological studies through the Antiochian House of Studies. He strives to integrate Orthodox spirituality and anthropological truths in his work, especially when treating addiction and, in particular, compulsive pornography use.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. You guys already seem like, I thought maybe it's the afternoon, we've had lunch, it's the very last day, everybody would be like tired, but you guys are, you're ready to go. Yeah, you're here. That's great. I was gonna have you stand up and do an exercise and get ready, but we don't have to do that. We don't have to do that. We got coffee probably coursing through our veins. Not your coffee, but soon. I bought some, so at home I'll have it, yeah. I'm very truly humbled to be here as I've been learning from all of you this weekend. I feel like most of what I'm going to say has already been said, better than I said it. I'm going to say it. And so it's going to be a lot of repeat. But thank you for listening, and I pray that it's helpful for all of us. So we'll be talking about pornography. I thought about how do I want to say this right at the beginning, and I almost said we're going to be looking at pornography this afternoon. Nah, that's not a good way to say that. Not a good way to say it. We'll be talking about pornography, and there's a lot to do. I did about 3 hours worth of material for my parish last year for any adults that were interested in learning more about pornography. So I've kind of whittled this 3 hours and down, and so it might be a lot, but I think we'll get through it, hopefully. There's a lot more I'd love to say, and we could talk about this. I can talk about this all day. I've made this as respectable as possible, but to talk about pornography, we do have to talk about some things that might be uncomfortable. So do what you need to do. If it makes you uncomfortable, please put your earbuds in, take a break, walk outside if you need to, do what you need to do. But we're not going to be graphic, but it's pornography, so I just wanted to put that out there. Pornography today, as we all know, I don't think I have to say, it's ubiquitous, it's everywhere. It gets more traffic in the US than Twitter, Instagram, Netflix, Pinterest, and LinkedIn combined. There's a ton of stats here I could give you. It's accessible, affordable, anonymous, which it never was in the past, any of those three things. Well, it might have been affordable, but you had to pay something. Now it's free, right? And much more accessible. It's also the third most common form of sex trafficking in the US. It would be remiss if we talked about pornography and we did not talk about the role sex trafficking plays in making pornography and keeping pornography available. What do we know about pornography, clinically speaking? What do some of the studies show? Nothing, I think, surprising to any of us, but we have to have the studies to show us, right? So these are links, correlations, right? It's very hard in our field to find causation. These are all correlated with regular pornography use. A tendency to have unrealistic views of sex, linked to lower view of getting married and having children, lower relationship satisfaction and lower relationship quality, increased chance of getting a divorce, decline in sexual arousal or ED or delayed ejaculation, increased likelihood of cheating, increase in depression, anxiety, lower life satisfaction, and poorer overall mental health. But again, we have to remember those are links. Some of those things can lead us to and tempt us towards pornography, right? The cause and effect can go either way. These things are correlated. And there is a A resource I'll give at the end where you can get a lot of these statistics. It's even a Deacon and I were just talking about, it's a non-religious organization. They have a great website called fightthenewdrug.org. You can get a lot of statistics now about the effects of pornography. But there's the effects on the partner as well. Feelings of rejection, anger, loneliness, and shame. A deep sense of betrayal and mistrust. And the interesting thing of the study that showed this was that was in partners who, even partners who didn't think pornography use in general is wrong, right? They don't think it's wrong. And they don't view it as cheating. But they still often had a deep sense of betrayal and mistrust. A sense of shame or confusion. Why am I not enough? And so we often decreased body image and self-esteem. Again, not surprising. These are effects on the partner. We often talk about the person struggling with compulsive pornography use getting help, but their partners need help too. That's just a reminder there. So these are the effects of pornography, or the things that are correlated and linked with pornography. And of course, as has been mentioned a couple times already in some of the workshops and things that I've attended, the number one core emotional experience, I think this is true of anybody who calls themselves an addict, is shame. Deep, deep shame. It's a huge factor. And it's, I think, even huger. I'll say huger, even though it's not a word. I'll say huger, a huger factor in struggling with pornography. The great vulnerability that was modeled to us and showed to us by Father by sharing his struggle was beautiful. That's hard enough. Imagine sharing a struggle with this. You shouldn't, probably. It's not good to. So we suffer alone. We suffer alone, like many people do, but it's hard to be open about this and share about it. One study showed, interestingly, that shame proneness, a proneness to shame, again defined as kind of, if you fail a test, right? Guilt says, I'm angry that I failed the test. I should have studied more. Or I feel badly that I failed the test. Shame says, I failed the test, therefore I am a failure, right? As I believe you talked about as well. So shame proneness is linked to hypersexuality and more predictive of using pornography. Guilt proneness was linked to motivation to change and engaging in preventative behaviors. That's great. So it tells us we need to address shame, which we'll get to in treating. I'm going to show you an image and ask you if it's pornographic. Don't be scared. Because it's an interesting discussion, I think. Just take a look and tell me what you think.
So there's a couple of things, right? There's a number of things. First of all, we don't know if she's naked or not. Mm-hmm. So that's drawing you in. Mm. Secondly, it's the eyes, right? I used to have a name for those eyes, but I can't say it as a priest. Then there's
the come hither look. The come hither look.
There's the face, and then even the hands. Even the hands.
She's touching herself.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's speaking in so many ways, and though it's not considered a pornographic image, it exudes lustfulness or sexuality, which can lead to that.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on it or disagreements? Would anybody disagree with Father?
Don't we bring our own experiences or interpretations into it?
Yeah.
Of course.
Is it pornographic for me? I think is the question, right? Yeah. Right.
Is there also a difference maybe between something that's pornographic versus something that arouses lust within me?
Mm. A difference between those two?
Yeah.
Say more.
Like the image being pornographic versus arousing something of the passions within myself. There's a difference between the image and my...
And me.
Yes.
Yeah. Could be, right?
So can you turn off the lights maybe near?
Is it hard to see?
Yeah.
You're gonna put
Just that
pornographic things in there.
Let's just do that. Let's do this.
Just
Yeah.
like this. Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
That'll work. Thank you.
Yeah.
But hang on a second. So there's a difference as a married man between arousal and being lustful, right? So
Can be.
There's nothing wrong with being aroused with the wife I've been
In the right
with,
context.
right? But when I'm feeling lustful, that's dangerous, right? So not that, yeah, because when I think about the person I'm sharing my life with, you know, arousal, even erotic, I think is acceptable. When I start looking at lustful stuff, I think that's sort of swaying away from what I think is healthy. That's for me.
Well, context is part of it there, is
Yeah.
part of what you're saying, I think, right? Sexual expression within the marital union, that's context, that's proper, right? That same exact thing outside of that context is not proper, right? So this is the question, right? What is pornography? Is this pornographic? Is it pornographic for me? Is there a difference between the image and myself, right? And so there's no clear-cut answer here. I would say, yeah?
Do you know what the Supreme Court said?
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, please, you share it.
It's the best. I don't know.
Because it came up in the Supreme Court, right? Larry Flint versus the Supreme Court, I think, is when it came up. So the Supreme Court had to try to define it.
Well, the famous line is like, we don't know how to define it, but you know when you see it.
You don't know how to define it, but you know it when you see it.
Yeah.
But do we?
Yeah, because
Would you want?
let's say your wife looked at you that way. That's not porn.
Wonderful.
That's
But if your priest's wife looked at you that way,
run
not good.
away.
If I looked at you all like that, right? Not appropriate.
Run farther.
Not run further.
And if your wife sees that on any of your devices,
Yeah.
it's the same. I think
Yeah.
that or a naked woman is the same thing.
Yeah. Could be. Right. I had to be very careful when I was searching for this image, but I think I searched "come hither" look. So on your tables now, discuss. I'll give you a couple of minutes, without using your phones or the internet. No outside, in just your own experience, your own brains. Come up with a working definition of pornography. I'll give you a couple minutes. Chat amongst yourselves. Okay, we'll come back to the whole group now. I'm sure we could keep talking about it for a long time. I have put up here on the what the Greek words meant originally. Porneia, if I'm saying it right, I don't know my pronunciation, is related to sexual immorality and unfaithfulness and even idolatry, right? Porneia. And graphe, which means to write or paint something, it's to make text or an image, right? So together, the word, like the etymology, right, would be imagery or text relating to sexual immorality or unfaithfulness, right? But I don't think that's complete because we're talking about, this text is about sexual immorality and unfaithfulness itself, but we wouldn't say it's pornographic. So what did you all come up with? What were some of your thoughts on your table?
We put image or art intending to provoke lust.
Image or art intending to provoke lust. Great. And with
That's why we said art.
image or art, that could include text, right?
Yeah.
Think of romance novels, right? That's text, right? Excellent. What else? I mean, there's no right or wrong, but that's very thorough, very succinct. What else did your tables talk about? Or where did you get stumped?
We got stuck on the intention
Yeah.
because therein lies the problem,
There's intention, right? And then how do you know the intention?
Right.
right? Somebody could make a film and say, oh, I didn't intend to provoke lust. You're the problem. You've responded lustfully.
Yeah, it's good. So there's the intention of the creator, and then we've all been around middle school boys. Sexualizing. So there's the perception as well, right?
Intention and then how it's received.
Yeah.
And then that might be partly goes to Megan's distinction about the image and myself. There's a difference there. What else did your tables come up with?
Mostly subjectivity, the subjectivity piece.
The subjectivity piece.
As the person who's engaging with it, what does it do to you?
What does it do to you?
Yeah.
Good. Layla?
Yeah, we talked a bit about like objectifying another person for your own consumption.
Objectifying someone else for your own consumption. Look at those words too. Oh, we're going to get into that. There's a great quote from Gregory of Nyssa that really hits a lot of those words like you just said. Objectifying other people, using others for our own gratification.
But if that's the definition of porn, then it's not an object, is it?
It's yes, right? It would have to be what? An image or a text that does that.
As an action.
An action.
Is that defining as an action, in which case you couldn't label an object as pornography?
That's true, right? It goes into that. What action comes out of the use of that object or the looking at that object, Layla?
Yeah, sort of to add to that a little bit, we also talked about how maybe not all images that are considered pornographic would be consistent across cultures. Like not all cultures have the same nudity standards, for example.
Yeah.
So it's not inherently pornographic.
Across cultures would change.
Yeah.
It might not be an image itself might not be inherently pornographic. It's again context or how it's received.
It's also defined by consumption and not the exposure or
how it's used, you mean?
How it's consumed.
How the image is used or consumed, it's defined by that, not just the image itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's one exception, exhibitionism.
Exhibitionism.
That's not involving the other person necessarily.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Father said there's one exception, which is exhibitionism, because another person may or may not be there. The person just likes the possibility of being seen. I think that's what you mean.
Yeah.
It's hard to define exactly, yeah.
Yeah, we kind of got stumped between like something that's sexually arousing versus something that's pornographic. Like, are those two constructs even necessarily related?
Well, I think it depends on the person too. And kind of like the point of like consumption, it's like, I don't know, most adults hopefully like you can look through an anatomy textbook and like nothing happens there, but you give that to like a middle school boy.
Right.
Different conversation.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly what I was thinking. To a 12-year-old boy, the Sears Nylon swimsuit could be pornographic.
Exactly. So, and that's when we're trying to help people. I think my personal opinion is that's the most important thing to remember. What's pornographic to you? Right? That's what we have to figure out. Andrew Williams, in his book From Object to Icon, came up with a definition very similar to what your table came up with about intention. I would change that. And it was this definition, and what I changed was the word in bold. Media relating to sexual immorality and unfaithfulness that are sexually explicit and do stimulate or arouse. In his definition, it was and intend to stimulate and arouse. What's I think most important is what does stimulate and arouse you, and you have to know that and deal with those things. We have to be honest about that. I can't rely on society's definitions. It's going to change. Different cultures, it's going to change, right? Like, this movie's rated R, but there's no nudity. I can watch it. I'm okay to watch it. Are you? You have to know yourself. What's nudity, right? There's a lot of specific definitions in that with the MPAA, the Motion Picture Association of America, how they rate movies, right? And my wife is from Eastern culture, and she'll be like, that's nudity. They don't have any clothes on. I'm like, yeah, but they're not showing these specific things, so they'll call it not nudity, right? You got to know. Another definition of porn, if you think about it, is most participants are paid. So it's filmed prostitution. it's impossible to know whether participants are voluntarily involved. So some also say it could be very much filmed paid rape.
So what you're saying is it's not even just the sin of the pornography, of the consumption. It's also the supporting
participation in this.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm consuming it, so I'm causing a demand, and as a result of my demand, there's some innocent person who's being forced to do that. It's almost like a double sin.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's a quote from a man. It was from a man who said, who used to be in the pornography business. He was a pornographer, and he said, "Pornography destroys the soul, and I got into it because I wanted my soul destroyed." Right. So even he was voluntary. He wasn't. It wasn't involuntary for him, but we're still contributing to people's souls being destroyed. Right. So can pornography be addictive? I wanted to try to quickly share with you, if you don't know, you may know, Deacon and I were talking about this. There's a big debate in the field, the clinical field, right? I don't think there should be a debate in the Orthodox Church that it's bad. It's always bad. It kills our souls. It's killing the souls of our people. Breaking up marriages, mostly young men, but pornography is a problem for females as well. It's killing our souls. This is huge. But in the field of psychology, some are saying, well, sexual behavior can't really be addictive. There's a strong view, not all in the field. There's a component of the field that argues this. Part of the problem is, as some others have mentioned during the conference, the word addiction is not a diagnostic term, and it's very hard to define. In the DSM, there's no diagnosis of addiction. Even gambling is gambling disorder. It's not gambling addiction. There's no diagnosis that's an addiction, clinically speaking. We use the word popularly, right? There's a strong push in a lot of places in psychology that we be sex positive. I teach CE classes, and one of them is on addiction, and a portion of that class I talk about, I have to say, problematic pornography use or compulsive sexual behavior. And I gave what I'm about to give you, the list of reasons why people in the field think sex cannot be addictive. And in my notes section on my PowerPoint, I put refutations to all those points, why I thought those points didn't make sense. And the MBCC said I could not offer CEs because of those refutations in my notes. Right? So there's a strong component in the field. Their concerns include that psychological distress about sexuality itself will be diagnosed. They say that 90% of sex addicts or people who would be diagnosed that really have underlying depression or anxiety, and they're just using sex to cope. So if you address the depression and anxiety, then you get rid of the sexual behavior. Sounds like every person who struggled with drugs that I know. They're afraid that the sex addiction will be used for people to avoid criminal responsibility. Oh, I didn't mean to grope her. I'm a sex addict, right? I shouldn't be put in jail.
They don't get prosecuted anyway.
No. There's just a theoretical underpinning that sex cannot be. It's a biological function, and it's a ideological view that it cannot be addictive. In the DSM, under sexual disorders, we have 2 different disorders, one for females, one for men. I can't remember their names, maybe you do. For hypo, arousal, right? You have less of a desire for sex. That's a problem. That's a disorder in the DSM. But hyper is not there. You can't have too much of a desire for sex in the DSM. Yeah, so those are the concerns. They're also concerned that those who have for decades been fighting for acceptance of their non-normative sexual behaviors, that this will be used against them if we make sex an addiction.
So how does this deal with the peer-reviewed clinical research that porn is addictive? Do they just not address that? I'll list for you a couple things. It's not addressed yet, right? In the DSM yet.
So not normative, it's like furries and stuff.
Furries, maybe, who knows, right? Whatever, right? The ICD-11 does now include compulsive sexual behavior disorder. Compulsive, not addictive, right? It's not an addiction, but compulsive sexual behavior disorder. The DSM does not, the ICD-11 does. So it recognizes that. I've just listed 4. You can go on Google Scholar and find, I think this will answer part of your question. You can go on Google Scholar and find as many as you want. If you can't find these studies, I can provide more information for them that show, with study the brain, the neurological pathways involved in compulsive sexual behavior disorder, and they're the same pathways in substance addiction. It's in the pleasure and memory and reward parts of the brain, right?
This is why we say stay away. One of the reasons why we say stay away from relationships the first year, because you can substitute sex for your drug because you produce the dopamine and serotonin.
Yes, yeah. If you're trying to refrain from a drug, stay away from sex too, right? So there is a lot of literature. It goes against that ideology. So there's still resistance, but let's see in the next DSM and other things. Yeah. So I just wanted to let you know that there's this controversy in the field, and that's there, sadly. But I will also say clinically, I work a lot with people struggling with pornography use, and I've seen the label of it as an addiction to be both helpful and unhelpful. It depends. It depends on the situation, it depends on the person, depends on their spouse, right? So I had one guy who had seen a therapist just before me who said this is an addiction to pornography, so you've got a sexual addiction to pornography. He worked with him for a couple of months, then came to me. He fairly easily stopped his pornography use. It became very infrequent, and then it stopped altogether. But his wife heard sexual addiction, and she was devastated, right? My husband is a sexual addict. And then she's concerned, is he touching my children? Is he, all these things. Making him get lie detector tests. Now, she's diagnosed with OCD, right? But that label was not helpful for him, and I think not accurate. And it did a lot of damage to his marriage. So we have to be careful. I'm having trouble stopping to use pornography. Well, how often do you use? I don't know, every 3 months or 4 months. I'm addicted. Maybe not. Just because you can't stop doesn't necessarily mean you're addicted. Depends, right? So I won't read all these. You can take a picture if you want. These are just aspects of problematic pornography use that have the exact same diagnostic criteria of addictions, what we would call addictions. And I've seen, and maybe you have too, all of these. So I think it's okay to call it an addiction if it's helpful to the client. I think we have the studies to show that in the brain, the same thing happens, and that this is an issue. Why do people stay at it? Why? What makes it addictive? A guy named Jay Stringer wrote a book called Unwanted. Anybody heard of that or read it?
Yeah.
About unwanted sexual behaviors. Excellent book. I recommend it. He gives this is his list of explanations of why people stay at it, right? So deprivation, what is that? That is a lack of self-care. It could be improper diet, exercise, hygiene, all of that. It could be unmet needs because you're of a lack of assertiveness, right? You're deprived in some ways. You don't believe your needs are as important as everybody else's. You feel exhausted and stressed, and that leads you back to pornography over and over again, or sexual behavior in general. You use it as dissociation to escape from life stresses, fleeing your reality. Unconscious sexual arousal. He talks about knowing your sexual map. And we'll talk about it when we talk about treatment. Oh my gosh, we gotta go. We gotta fly. Knowing and understanding what arouses you helps you understand where your sexuality is broken. He gets into that. Futility, a lack of purpose in life. Boredom, right? And then sometimes I'd say the least amount of times is it actually lust, right? Lust and anger. We're going to see a link between those.
You know what I would include there?
What's that?
Only because I hear this in the groups, is boredom.
Yes, boredom. Yeah, it's a huge one, right? We'll talk about that when we get to triggers as well. As we've talked about all weekend, a lot of people have mentioned the link between addictions and compulsions and trauma. We have to remember that as well. Whether it's sexual trauma or not, though sexual trauma can be part of it. Gabor Mate said every traumatized child doesn't become an addict, but every addict was a traumatized child. And I believe that that's true. So we have to be aware of ACEs. Father, you brought those up. Very important. Yeah. But what does the church say? What do the fathers say? Fathers say that God gave us natural faculties as human beings before the fall, right? These are all good. He gave us intellect. He gave us desire, even. A desire and a yearning for Him. We have this faculty and capacity to desire, right? So that we love Him and yearn to grow closer to Him. Even anger He gave us, the irascible power, they call it, right? To fight off those things that keep us from Him. These are all good things when pointed in the right direction. Freedom, memory, imagination. Desire is often called the desiderative power. I have to keep pulling up Merriam-Webster and clicking that little speaker button to help me remember how to say that word, because I can never remember. The desiderative power, an SAT word for all of us. So what is lust? Lust is that desire, that desiderative power that's given to us to yearn for God, to grow closer to God, to be united to Him. When it falls, now it's not pointed at God anymore. It starts roaming and looking for something else to yearn for. Think of attachment theory. Think of any object relations theory even, right? Where we need connection. We're looking for relationship, right? And it starts to seek pleasure for pleasure's sake. So Larche, in his book Therapy of Spiritual Illnesses, can say, consequently, the more that man desires and loves sensible objects are us, the table, anything we can sense with our senses, right? Sensible objects, the less he desires and loves God. And so, Layla, you all touched on it. Relations between mankind become relations from object to object. We objectify each other, use you to get that pleasure, right?
I have a question.
Yes.
Could you go back to the last slide? Isn't it possible to love sensible objects like human beings as icons of God?
Yes.
That makes it seem like it's a zero-sum game between my love for God and my love for my wife.
Yeah. Yes. and the fathers will sometimes talk about it, this faculty of desire, as being singular, so it can only be pointed at one thing. And I was trying to make sense of that, but what I understand of that, though I could be wrong, I'm open to correction, is it starts with God. But if we love God, God loves all of us, and so then we would love others as well.
Yeah, even putting our wives as that equal to God is idolatry.
Yes, yeah. Were you going to say something?
Even, I can't say because we don't need image.
Yeah. So it's a distortion of our God-given desire. So as we've been saying all weekend, what do we want when we're using pornography or in a compulsive sexual behavior? We want connection. That's what we're really looking for. The connection we were created for with God and with others. So continue on in these effects of the inversion of desire. That desire for pleasure's sake, is the cause of our suffering and pain. The fathers are pretty clear on this. In general in life, we're talking about lust, but this could be, desire for pleasure of food, of whatever, right? It could be not just sexual. So St. Maximus the Confessor, man learnt by experience that every pleasure of a surety has pain as its successor. So that desire that was supposed to point us to God is now pointing at other things. We get those things. They don't feel that satisfaction because they're not God. So we keep looking for other things. So we're more dissatisfied. We're more dissatisfied. We're more dissatisfied. It just keeps going. Same, right?
Same hole we're trying to fill.
Same hole, yeah. And Layla, I said there's a quote from St. Gregory of Nyssa, we become alienated then even to ourselves. We become disintegrated. We become like madmen, the fathers say. And the soul hunkers over bodily pleasures like beasts over their fodder.
Wow.
Isn't that an amazing quote?
Yeah.
That's a consumption. That's over fodder, right? Overeating. The soul just hunkering over, like just, it's
gluttony.
It's gluttony, right? It's all tied in. All these things are tied in. The fathers all also say that then the aggressive power is hijacked. Because now we want pleasure. We're seeking pleasure for pleasure's sake. The aggressive power now becomes hijacked to get us those things, or to it gets irritated when we don't get those things, right? So that there's a link between anger and lust or gluttony, all those kinds of things. And J. Stringer, in his book, this is not an Orthodox writer, himself said, he's in all his working with people struggling with compulsive sexual behavior, I've never met someone who struggles deeply with lust who is not also battling an unaddressed anger. Goes right along with what the fathers have seen for millennia, right? Millennia. So.
Just a second, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I've told you about the effects of pornography, or what the clinical studies kind of show. We talked about that. I've told you what the fathers kind of say, where this origin comes from, this problem with it. So I would, at your tables, quickly, in your experience and from what we've said, what things might help people struggling with problematic pornography use, both spiritual and clinical, pastoral and clinical. We have a wealth of knowledge in this room of experience of being people's confessors, being therapists, being family members of people maybe, who have struggled. So what do you think are things that would be helpful? I'll give you a few minutes. Okay, we'll bring it back now to the whole group. Whole group now. I want to get one kind of main thing each table talked about? One of y'all tell me one thing.
Well, we started with the addressing the anger.
Addressing anger.
Suppressed anger that's potentially there. Like,
Right, so the anger is linked, so we're going to have to deal with that. Excellent.
That's everything.
Yeah.
I just listed off like 30 things, and so my takeaway would be like every situation is so different, and every person's history is so different that I don't have like a one size fits all for someone who's presenting this to me.
I love this. There's not one size fits all.
No.
So there's 30 things, but it can't be cookie cutter.
No, like you get these 2, and you get these 5, and you get these 7.
Thank you. This table.
We talked a lot about like accountability. But and I think it goes in like a couple of directions. Like number one, accountability with a spiritual father in confession.
Yeah.
Being guilt through confession is like number one.
Yep.
But then at the same time having that accountability through like a support group.
Yes.
Like other people who are struggling with the same thing. So it's like you can try and get rid of some of that shame and say like, yeah, I did it.
That helps with the shame, right?
Not keep it a secret.
Not keep it a secret. Yeah. That shame and the darkness grows in secret, right?
I mean, we talked a little bit about attachment in injuries, and then
yes,
like restoring intimacy, both like men among each other and among spiritual father and the church community, the restoration of intimacy, which is, I think, like a lot of the symptoms are seeking to accomplish.
Yes. So attachment, learning how to connect and grow intimacy.
Yeah.
Excellent. You guys?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about helping them build up relationships, find a sense of belonging, and Sam said a word I really liked, enlivening them, reminding them like of their personhood and their value, and helping them bring things back to their life that they value.
Nice. Excellent. Yeah, a lot of connection in that, whether in many ways. This table?
I think we have a similar thing as some others, but I love that from the original plenary, find the mother.
Yeah, find the mother.
Yeah.
It's not a cookie cutter. Let's see what is going on.
Yes. I have a client currently who struggles with it. His family, he's in his early 20s. He still lives at home, Orthodox young man. His family's not Orthodox, so he lives with his family. His family is always, he has experienced his family as very critical of him. It's not a very warm house at all for most of his life. And he has developed this, when he uses pornography, it's a specific kink called vor porn, which I had never heard of. He taught me what that means. And it's of being consumed, literally being eaten. So most of the porn is animated. But I said, why do you like that? He said, it makes me feel warm, like I'm inside the belly, right, of somebody, and I feel warm. Well, that makes sense with how he grew up in the family that he still lives in, wants to go back to the womb. He wants to feel warm and, a warmth, a relational warmth of something, right, in some way. So, yeah, what's the mother? Yeah.
We have a lot about look for reconnection with God or connection with God.
Divine.
Fill the void.
Yes.
With what it's supposed to be filled with.
Yes. Divine love. The divine fire puts out the fire of the passions.
All the things.
All the things. All the things. Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Excellent.
The idea of the mother, Erik Hadden in his book, he was talking about working with someone who was addicted to heroin, and she was telling them, when I shoot up, it's like a warm blanket or a hug from a mother.
Yes.
And so this is, again, going back to this attachment injury.
Yes.
Right? Like the oxytocin that's not received from the bond of a child with a mother is going to be sought out through porn and heroin.
Yeah.
And you're going to keep spinning unless you come back to that nature of Christ and the church and filial attachment and love.
Absolutely. Yep. So we'll go through a lot of what you all just said, and I have a lot of slides in about 7 minutes, so we're going to roll through. So this is both pastoral and clinical, a lot of what you all just said. I believe a person-centered approach is more helpful, a corrective relational experience, UPR, that warmth and that really doesn't mean I don't use CBT in the process and behavioral things as well, but that we don't treat the problem, we treat the person. I believe that too clinically, that's
that is what should happen. That's my bias clinically as well. And that it must, in my opinion, require more than just strategy-based interventions. Strategy-based interventions can be good. They can be very helpful. There's a brilliant psychologist talking right now about strategies on feeling states and eye movement to help break some of these feeling states with that can even help break connections with pornography use and things like that. She's presenting right now. That's nothing bad, but I think just by itself is not enough. Fostering true, deep connections with God and with others, of course. We got to deal with shame at its root. Focus on growth and appropriate vulnerability. That's that intimacy. How do we be intimacy? How to be truly vulnerable in relationship? I always do this because to me, being vulnerable is like cracking open your chest, right, before God and others. That's how it feels to me.
That's how I pray.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, after the regular written prayers,
yeah.
I take that moment, I envision myself putting my hands in my chest, I'm ripping it open.
Yeah.
And saying, this is me, Lord.
Yeah, that's what it feels like to me, yeah. Yeah. As Jay Stringer talks about in his book and all his research, how a person's sexuality is broken is clue to the wider hurts, including that client I just mentioned. So exploring, sometimes we say, well, we don't want to, let's not talk about those things. Let's just do behavioral interventions or things like that. I think it's often very good to go, no, wait, what's going on? What are you into? When you use porn, what do you look at? What's your drug of choice? What kind of porn are you looking at? Let's, because it's going to lead us often to, there's a deeper hurt there that's connected. It makes sense, right? Or what's the pattern of the behavior? If it's, I'm compulsively going to get erotic massages, right? Where, how, why, right? Jay Stringer in his book mentions somebody who it was only on a Saturday morning this guy would go to visit prostitutes, but it was linked to this experience he had every Saturday morning growing up, right? So these things can be linked. Remember that the fight is a long one. A lot of my guys, I deal with guys with this, men that come in, they're exhausted, they're full of shame, they just want it to stop. But it's often a long fight. I call it the slow work of God. Father St. John Cassian said, the fight against the spirit of fornication, which takes longer than the others, is an endless, epic battle, which few win completely.
Wow. Okay, just go back to that quickly.
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
That's okay.
But it's possible.
But it's possible. As the next icon shows. If you want to go live in the desert for 40 years, it's possible. This is personal opinion, and
for 17 years.
There is no cookie cutter approach. This is personal opinion, but something to think about. For men, forming a deep connection also with the Theotokos, I would say St. Mary of Egypt, where you're relating and connecting to the feminine that is drawing you closer to God, and reshaping how you relate to women is, I think, very important. Loving Christ. This is the main thing, right? That was mentioned. We mentioned that. It's connection. It's communion. He is pure who expels fleshly love with divine love and who has extinguished the fire of passion by the fire of heaven. Getting that desire pointed back to God. It's the transformation of desire. It's not the squashing of desire. I need to not, that's white knuckling, right? Just put it, I did not do it, right? That's going to blow up at some point. That's a volcano waiting to happen, right? It's got to be this transformation of desire. Brothers and sisters, I'm on the path still. I can talk about this because I can read that's what the fathers say, but I'm still learning, what does that mean? I don't know what that means in my own life, right? As I eat half a bag of potato chips. So the goal is transformation of desire and not getting rid of desire, stamping it out. And then we start to see the world, as Andrew Williams in his book talks about, iconographically instead of pornographically. We're not relating to the world and others to just get pleasure or as objects to satisfy our desire. We see things, everything is leading us to God. Even images maybe that would have, if you're very healed, images that would have tempted you before become a way to go, oh, Thank you, Lord, for the beauty of the human, so to speak. You can't do it by yourself. He who is resolved to contend with his flesh and conquer it himself struggles in vain. This is God's work in us. It's all about Christ, right? And we can say, well, what about clients who don't know Christ? They're not Christians. They know us. They know us. I'm sorry, I get passionate. We should be, I fail, but we should be so in love with Christ that when we're sitting with other people, they see Christ and they can get to know us. That client who I told you about, he is hard to be warm to. His demeanor, his flat affect. So I'm working very hard and I'm asking God to increase my love for him. I could show him that warmth he never had, so he doesn't have to keep going back to that pornography. Though he's a Christian also, right? And he knows Christ, but still. The fathers say also, chastity always appears as a gift from God. Chastity is not celibacy. Chastity is being able to not be ruled by our desires. So prayer, that's connection with God. True prayer, right? Not just reciting prayers, opening our chest, right? We should recite prayers too. But when we're reciting prayers, we're always trying to get what's in our head down into our heart, right? As well. The sacraments, communion itself is consuming. We are taking God into us.
The medicine of immorality.
The medicine of immortality.
No. Can I say more?
Yeah, I don't, yeah, but yeah, right? I would say that's another medicine.
Oh my goodness.
I would say the church functioning.
I just had a flashback. I think it was when I was in 5th grade. I asked a question. It was about an organism, and I said orgasm. The whole entire class laughed. So
exactly, yeah. I've done the same thing. The church functioning as community. Will you all give me 5 more minutes?
Yes.
I'm sorry, it's the end of the conference. I know we're all tired. The church functioning as community, as much as we're able to, this is my bias as well, because connection, right? We're not just coming to church, seeing you there, coffee hour, and then leave. We're in each other's lives. We're taking meals to each other when we're sick. We're watching each other's children. We're functioning as a community. There's connection. All the fathers say also attentive reading of the Holy Scriptures. The remembrance of death, the fathers talk about as a good antidote to lust. Obedience to a spiritual father, someone who you tell all your thoughts to, not an obsessive compulsive way, but the revealing of thoughts, right? Fostering humility, gentleness, patience. The fathers also say, actually, if there's gluttony involved as well, before you get to the sexual part, you have to deal with the gluttony first. This is what the fathers say. It's not cookie cutter, probably, right? It's individual, but in general. It's a bodily thing. Lust is a bodily thing. So bodily spiritual practices can help. Fasting, vigils, heavy labors that tire out the body, right? Those things can often be helpful. And often all these things must be accompanied. Fighting against all these things must be accompanied in the fight with lust as well. Yeah. That's like despondency, despair.
It's like depression.
Who's seen Lord of the Rings? Gandalf on the bridge of Khazad-dûm.
You shall not pass.
You shall not pass. Remember that? He's fighting a demon. And he faces him. Puts his staff down. I was going to show you the clip, but we don't have time. You shall not pass, right? Sir Ian McClellan, what's his name? Whatever his name is. Beautiful, right? Don't do that with this. Don't do as Gandalf does. You cannot fight this on your own. You do not stand and face it.
Right.
You shall not pass does not work. St. John Climacus says, do not expect to overthrow the demon of fornication with refutations and pleadings, for nature is on his side and he has the best of the argument. Right?
Yeah.
Don't do it. Don't get in that battle. You're going to lose. So this is also where nepsis and watchfulness can come in. I've heard repeated again and again during this conference as well. Those lustful thoughts, those thoughts that are introduced, learning how to, I don't have to gauge them. I worked with somebody who we started talking about that, and he goes, oh, he said, I thought I had to stand up to the temptation. He thought he had to take the lustful thoughts in and really get into them and then say no. And that's what standing up to temptation, right? No. No, learn to just
distract and get away.
Let them float by, yeah. Let them float by. So, but do what Gandalf does. At the end of that scene, he's, I don't want to spoil it. It's been out for 20 years. The demon, as it's falling down into the pit at the very last minute, with his fiery whip, grabs his foot and pulls him down, and he's clinging on the edge of the cliff, looking at those he was just protecting. And right before he falls into his doom, he says, "Fly, you fools." He's telling them, run, get away, right? Even though the demon's falling into the pit. Flee from sexual immorality. I had a bunch of scriptures to show you. I assumed we all know the scriptures are very clear about fleeing from all of this. So remove ourselves from situations. So don't do what Gandalf does, but do what he says. Also remembering and helping people know that often their salvation is in the struggle. This can be a new idea for a lot of people. It was new to me several years ago. St. John the Long-Suffering, this is what he struggled with, lust. And this is one of his quotes. He asked, "Lord, why did you leave me so long in torment?" He buried himself into the ground up to his waist because he struggled with this temptation for decades. I can't remember how long. And God said, "I tried you according to the power of your endurance. I brought upon you temptation so that you might be purified like gold. It is to the strong and powerful servants that a master assigns the heavy work and the easy tasks, to the infirm and to the weak." The struggle itself against this can be part of our salvation and part of our crown. We talked about identifying the root. There's many ways we can do that. Formative childhood experiences, whether they be sexual or not. And also, I think the very first sexual experience in our lives imprints on us something that often gets repeated or continually sought after. I see that as a pattern as well. Behavioral helps. These can be helpful. They're the same as you talk about in the rooms, right?
Angry, lonely time.
Know your triggers. Halt. I add B, boredom, because you said that. I add B, halt. When I'm hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, I'm often more susceptible to fall into my sin. But the fathers say fasting is good. But what if I'm hungry and that leads me to temptation? That's why it's not cookie cutter.
When we're fasting, we have less patience during long fasting periods.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the wrong attitude.
Yeah. 12-step groups, Sexaholics Anonymous and their Sex Addicts Anonymous. I recommend Sexaholics Anonymous because their definition of sobriety is more in concert with our beliefs. And they have their white book as well, or other men's groups. Connection, we need to connect, we need each other. Addiction is about a very severely damaged willpower. We talked about that a lot this conference. So we need help from outside of ourselves, God and each other. I think guardrails can help. I call these things guardrails, putting filters on your router, right? Putting covenant eyes on your computers to block sites and things like that. It's not foolproof. You can find a way around, but it's one more thing I have to bump up against when the temptation hits me that hopefully maybe puts me back on the road. It's not to control behavior. It's just one little thing to help.
I always tell people to move your whatever you consume with outside of your bedroom.
If you
move it in another room, put it outside. Just every opportunity to put an obstacle between you and the action gives you the opportunity to fight it.
Yes. Yeah. One more, to get a little bit more space. Yeah. Exactly. Thank you, Father. Lust is not the big fish for Satan. I tell people this too, but I got it from the fathers. The fathers say this. This is not the big fish. It feels, there's so much shame in this, right? It feels like the big fish. This is not the big fish for him. This is because there's a way out.
and it's repentance. And he knows it. Satan knows it. But if he can get you to lust and fall into this enough and enough and enough till you despair and don't keep going to God, that's the big fish. That's what Satan really wants. So that's, I think, something to be reminded of as well.
Would you say that, I think this is the biggest addiction, as a spiritual father, this is the biggest addiction, more with guys and girls, but that people suffer right now in this day and age. But would you say that one of the reasons why this is so big, an addiction is, there's so much light on it, is because the consequences of addiction are so much greater in an external way. Yet internally, this destroys us as well. And so the reason why this is more popular, if you want to call it that, is because there are fewer external consequences to be lost in this addiction as opposed to in other things like gambling and
yeah, it's much easier. There's less risk in the sense, right? It does get, I've worked with a lot of people, I'm sure you have too, where it gets to the point where it affects they lose their job, they lose their marriage, right? But I think it can go on a lot longer before stuff like that happens than if you're using heroin or cocaine or things like that. Yeah, for sure. It's extremely destructive. I don't say this to say it's not destructive. It is. I said it's killing our souls of our people earlier. It's killing us. But despair would be the worst.
I think something else to note is just the early age of exposure. The average age of exposure right now is about 8 or 9 years old.
Yeah.
And so it's important to start that vigilance early in our communities and with our kids.
Thank you for bringing age of exposure is important. I always ask. I have a whole list of things to ask when we first meet, and that's one of them, first age of exposure.
On that topic, I tell my parishioners, if you have like a teen as a child and they have some sort of screen and you think that you've locked it down, you're wrong.
Yes.
You haven't.
Yep. Yes.
If you think you have, you're wrong.
Exactly.
0%
yes.
of the teenagers that I have confession have.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Excellent. Yeah.
We have our wrap-up thing upstairs.
Yeah.
In 5 minutes.
And that was my last slide. Thank you, Joel. Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you. Thanks for letting me go over.
Wow.